everyone. All right, if you could let me know if you can see and hear me, that'd be great. So it's nice to see everyone here, and yeah, we just got back from swim lessons, so that's fun. Okay, let's see if I can get the angle of the camera. Good, oops. Gotta keep the computer plugged in if I want it to broadcast. All right, so today I get to show and tell the Book of Centuries that we're using. It was within a picture on Instagram, and then I got so many questions about it. It's like, I'm just gonna do a little short video. And so you can feel free to ask questions. It looks like there are a couple already down here at the bottom. So a Book of Centuries is basically a timeline within a book. So it has dates and you make entries, and that is a Book of Centuries. So it's a history activity, I guess. And it's recommended within a Charlotte Mason education generally. Others perhaps, but primarily the Book of Centuries is something that is a practice for Charlotte Mason homeschoolers, or those who recognize that she was onto a good thing. This is one of her good ideas. And it didn't sound like, I don't think it's something she invented necessarily, but it's a practice she made sure and said, this is something our kids should be doing. So it's different from a timeline, because a timeline is, all the way across, it's a line, right? Like at one point we had receipt tape, or either receipt paper taped up to the wall and had dates on that, and we're putting figures or whatever. That was kind of a disaster. This at least is all in a book, portable. It doesn't have quite the same visual effect as a timeline, but we use it in our family for the older grades where they already kind of have that sense of time. So I think a timeline helps younger kids get a sense of time passing, but a Book of Centuries is a little bit different. So I think that answers I'm hearing that a Book of Centuries is not the same as a timeline. It's the same, except it's a book instead of a line. It's the same kind of activity. The same things you would put on a timeline go into a Book of Centuries. So you can see here. Now, you could put more in a Book of Centuries than on a timeline, because see, there's more space on a page for years than there would be on a timeline. So it's a little bit more versatile, more expansive than a timeline. A timeline, you pretty much hit the highlights, whereas a Book of Centuries can fit all kinds of stuff because you just have more space per time. And would map work fit in somewhere? I'm trying to find a way to start that. So in this Book of Centuries, there is space. There's lined space and then blank space on each page. So theoretically, you could sketch a map, a related map on the side. If you wanted to incorporate like a map of Europe in that century or something, you could either print a small one and tape it in there, or you could print your own and put it in a 3-ring binder and intersperse maps. That would be another way. Or even if you liked this and just wanted it pre-printed, you could even buy a Book of Centuries like this one and have the binding cut off and 3-hole punched at an office supply store. That's usually a couple dollars. And then put it in a 3-ring binder so you can intersperse maps. That's an idea. That's an option. I've been pretty bad at map work, except for just printing off maps and having them label them, but not I haven't really tied map work into history. And this is definitely a history sort of activity. Okay, why the blank space? I believe, it's been a while since I've read The Living Page, but The Living Page is a great book about keeping notebooks, maps, journals, just kind of all the kinds of hand work, like pencil work, whether that's writing or sketching or calendar journaling, all the different kinds of learning activities that rely on pen or pencil and paper. So, and that's from a Charlotte Mason perspective, where, you know, she kind of scoured the PNEU plans and Charlotte Mason's recommendations and said, these are the different kinds of journals that are mentioned throughout her materials and the characteristics. Because, you know, Charlotte Mason wrote a lot, and some of the practices, her principles are distilled in the 6th volume, but a lot of her practices are not. They're kind of woven throughout or found more in the PNEU articles, magazine, resources. So anyway, in Charlotte Mason's recommendation, the Book of Centuries included sketches. They were in England, and so one of her expectations was that kids would go to the British Museum and sketch things. Like if you saw, you know, a piece of armor, like one of the old kind of Beowulfish sort of helmets, that the children would sketch it into their Book of Centuries. So, or they could sketch a map. So there's room here for sketching as well as for writing. So let me see. I know that this one is my son, my oldest son's. So this is his 3rd year writing it. So he has one map here. I think the time frame here is, I don't know what the map goes to. The Euphrates. So this is about, he read about the Euphrates and traders and Enkidu, or no, I'm sorry, his handwriting in 7th grade was atrocious. Anyway, he wrote, he drew a little map. I'm trying to get the light right. So he drew a little map of the trade route, maybe? I don't know. He didn't label it very well, but he drew a map on the sidebar. So you can use the side to draw a related map. He also, I don't know why, drew NASA space rocket for 2500 BC. So, you know, I don't know why. So that is, but it's there. And so another question is, when do you start a Book of Centuries, and why have you done it at that time? So no, not yet. You wait for me to be done, and then we'll talk. I give my kids one of these Book of Centuries published by Cottage Press in 7th grade. I tried a homemade Book of Centuries when my oldest was in 5th grade, and it was fine. The main thing was we didn't do it. It worked fine. We just were not very good at doing it. We've tried timelines. I tried a timeline on a poster board. I've tried a timeline, like I said, like receipt paper across the line. And it really boiled down to not having it together enough to actually use it. And at that younger stage, it really was more me. It was all on me to keep it going, to get us, you know, directed to there, to have something like telling them what to do, where to put it. It was really me acting, and then them sometimes them doing, but sometimes me doing and them watching. And I just felt like this is a waste of time. I often call things a waste of time when I don't want to do them. But in 7th grade, one of my goals is to help the student move to more independence, and not just independence like they can do the things on their list more reliably, but also independence as in seeing that this learning is their learning. This is their project. So I am starting them off on a track. I'm giving them a map, directions. They're starting their journey. But this is a journey that they're going to keep going. But they are the ones on it. They're the ones walking. They're the ones going. It's their project. It's their life. And so I change things up, and I try to change a little bit of the way school happens at 7th grade versus the younger years. And so this is just one of the things. This is one of the things that they get. They get their own book of centuries, which they will use for at least the rest of their homeschool education. So this one's my oldest. He's in 9th grade this year. So this is his 3rd year of using this book. And I bought one for myself, and, I think it would be cool, and it would totally be possible for him to continue to have this book. And, he wouldn't have to add to it every week or something, but he might want to keep it, and he could add stuff to it for however long, or maybe because he was inspired, he'll want to start a new one or something because he realizes that his handwriting was embarrassing. So we started in 7th grade. I believe that the Charlotte Mason recommendation is 10 years old. That's fine too. I think at 10 years old, it would still be a little bit of hand-holding to make sure that things are, understood and entered and that. We start at 7th grade because our history cycle, I start them over again at Agents in 7th grade. And like I said, I want them to have some special things. And so this is one of the things I've chosen as a special thing for 7 and up, or 7th grade and up. So it's totally independent. Okay, and several people here are saying they have a family book of centuries. So that's nice. Yeah, you could have a family one for elementary years and then have graduate them into having their own. They also get a set of their own colored pens. So I encourage them to decide on a color code, like wars. I'm going to enter wars in this color and that color. You can see my son had one and then crossed it all out. He made one in 7th grade, crossed it all out in 8th grade. And I believe now in 9th grade, he's color coding again. But he went through a phase where he was irritated at the Book of Centuries. Whatever, it's still going. So this is a Book of Centuries, and it's one of the history activities. We don't do mummifying chickens or ice or sugar cube pyramids or tests, or you read, you write something about what you read, and you make an entry in your Book of Centuries, and that's history. So maybe we could talk about kind of the transition to the upper years for another video. That'd be a good idea. So I'll add that to my list of ideas. There we go. So you can definitely, there are all kinds of instructions for making your own Book of Centuries. There are people who have stuff you can already print out. There's a big, fancy, thick, kind of bindery looking one out there. But this is the Book of Centuries printed by Cottage Press, and I love it. I love the feel of the cover. The size is perfect. And then the format, I love. So I've already shown you the inside. It has room for sketching and lines. It's not a strict Book of Centuries. So if you really want to be, super accurate or whatever with the timeline, and have 1 page per century all the way back till whatever time you decide to start it, you would have a much thicker book than this, because you have a page for every 100 years. This one kind of condenses BC. So this is one of my favorite things about it. I mean, we are young Earth creationists, so I have no problem with young Earth starting your timeline or whatever. But the thing is, even so, I don't think we know with enough accuracy to start to put on timelines like 8,000, 8,000 BC, the world was created. I was like, we know ballpark, we don't know. So putting a year on creation, I don't like. And so what I like about this one is that it says in the beginning. And so really there should be the 7 days of creation on this page. And then it says, oops, sorry, men began to multiply. So you have a couple spaces there to put early history. We have no idea of the dates for sure or where they were in relation. We have guesses that we make, and here are why we make our speculations, but you can put them on the timeline without that kind of false accuracy, which especially when it's a school and you want them to learn that you don't want them, anyway, I don't want to give them false accuracy on that. There's this page that says a flood of water. And then it starts with 5,000 BC, which is about when we have, dated things. So Stonehenge began, Uruk was founded, one of the first cities that we still have evidence of. So and really almost any history book we've read does start with, known civilization around this time. So I really like the way that this starts off. And then, so this says 5,000 BC, and then the next one is 2,500 BC. So it skips a lot, but still this is what we have for that time. So in this one, you would definitely have something you could put on each page, even though, so then this one starts again at 2,500 BC. 2,200. So time speeding up a little bit. And so then we get into actual century charts where it's 100 years every spread. But then once you get to so it's 100 years every page until 1600, and then it's 50 years. And so in this case, instead of 100 years being on one page, you have 100 years on one spread. And eventually in the 1900s, it starts slowing down even more. So 10 years. So for, the 1900s, you have a page for every 10 years. So I like that for the timeline, because then it's not just putting highlights. Like you would on a timeline, you'd only put the highlights, the big important events and important people. This book of centuries is going to be more along the lines of anything you're reading about, you can put it in there and see where it fits, and make an unlikely connection perhaps as you go in and add something else from some other reading. There's going to be space to put it in here. So I really like that. And I like, the size, the feel. I really like the design on the inside. And for me, I just thought it was well worth it to buy a pretty bound, this is going to last and survive even boys pulling it out multiple times a week for years, rather than, like, I have tried printing my own before and never actually got the whole thing put together. Printed lots of pages, put some together in a binder, then they fall out. And this is going to stay together. It's well made. It's this extra thick cover, even though it's paperback, and so it's going to last. So the owner of Cottage Press, Kathy Whites, was a homeschool mom. She had, I think five kids. They're all graduated. So she is an experienced homeschool mom who has started, she sells writing curriculum and also this book of centuries at Cottage Press. And all of her stuff is fabulous. And it just is built for a homeschool because she gets it. She knows what a homeschool life is like and how lessons and how work goes in a real homeschool, because she's graduated multiple students. And she's a classical, Charlotte Mason influenced classical educator. And she sent me the first book of centuries as a review copy. And then I have purchased them for my students after that, because as soon as they came in the mail, I was like, this is perfect. I am not going to bother printing anything. So I wanted to show that off and answer some questions, since I was getting questions about our book of centuries, since it was showing up in pictures. Yes, so you can, the link is in green under this video. I put it in there before I began. So it says visit Cottage Press. That will take you to her site where she sells her stuff. And she also has a blog called The Reading Mother, which is a nice little blog. So she has a guest post on Simply Convivial on how to teach children to commonplace, with examples, like real life, actual kids examples. Because she's still kind of in the homeschooling world, because she's doing a classical co-op, one of the Scholé groups. So so she still knows what it's like, and she still has some good real life examples. So yeah, Kathy is great to follow, and she's on Instagram too. And yeah, the link to visit Cottage Press and find out what she has there and some of her resources is that green button underneath. So thanks for joining.